Hi and welcome to this post-social podcast. Today's guest is Dominic Whyte-Ifill, Employer Engagement Officer with the University of East London. During this podcast, we discuss his previous experience with university life and what challenges he had to overcome during his time with the university, as well as talking about his passion for exercise and how he believes it can benefit mental health as well as physical health. Before we start, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and check the description for our Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn pages. Okay, so thank you very much, Dominic, for being here today. How are you?
I'm good, no worries. Thank you. I'm good. I'm good today, actually. It's a nice day. It's Friday.
It's a nice day for you. Weekend coming up now. So before we go into the questions, do you want to give like a brief summary of who you are, what your work is, interests-wise?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Dom, and I work for the University of East London. And I work for a particular service within the university, which is our Careers and Student Enterprise Service. And what my job is to do is to essentially make sure there's enough industry partners, not just in any particular industry, because it's the program I look after is the business, Masters of Business Administration. So it's just industry partners, making sure there's enough opportunities coming into the university for our students. Interest-wise, is a bit different. I am a bit of a nerd in the sense that I really enjoy, one of my favourite things to do is watch BBC News and take in a lot of information. But my biggest interest currently, recently, has been fitness, but my own personal fitness. So I'm not a person, I'm no PT at all by any standard, but due to recent events, which I can go to a bit, I basically had a recent operation, which really reduced my mobility. So the only way I could keep fit was at the gym. So yeah, fitness has become a huge interest for me.
Right. So as well as working at the university now, you also studied East London. So what subject was it? What did you study?
Funnily enough, it's I decided to study the same program I look after. So I completed my MBA. Actually, I completed my MBA at the beginning of this year. So I have the joy of actually going through the graduation process as a student, as well as obviously as a member of team or staff. And funny enough, it was my first ever university experience as well. So it's kind of weird you all come at once in the same place.
So when you were studying at university, did you stay on campus? Were you just coming in every day and not out?
So when the program started, I probably, just like as many of your peers would tell you, I was one of the COVID generation. My cohort started in September 2020. So it was a really strange experience doing university for the first time, but not being able to be on campus. So it was through the dual delivery and Teams and stuff. So the majority of my lectures on Teams. And work was submitted through Moodle, and things were recorded in Moodle and stuff like that. So it was a unique experience. Probably the benefit for me is because I was working full time and I decided to study full time. It kind of made it slightly easier. It made my journey to do this MBA easier because, well, not that it was easy, but because I didn't have to be juggling and here, there, and everywhere.
Right, so obviously being from the COVID generation, as you say, that's got to that's got to maybe have a bit of effect on maybe like mental health, that kind of.
100%.
Yeah,
I agree. I do agree. I think 100%. I think if you just sort of take it back as for me and probably a lot of other students, to have your first university experience, which is you're really excited about because it's a huge experience, to have it and it not go, it's not going to be the same experience that everyone else had spoke about. did have an effect mentally, because you kind of think, am I going to be able to do it? Am I going to be able to get the support? And so when I said previously it's probably easier because I was only in one location, whereas I found it a bit harder. What I found quite hard is the fact that because you couldn't just knock on a door, or you couldn't just say, do you know what, I know where my lecturer is going to be, or you couldn't just sit back with some of your classmates or your peers saying, I didn't really understand this part, or do you get much of that part? You having to actively reach out via Teams and other ways was I'm going to be honest, it probably gave me a bit of anxiety, especially for, again, as a first-time student, because sometimes if you're in obviously the community or in the classroom, you get to, like I said, you can get a feel of where you're going, whereas it was essentially all down to getting your head down and do it by yourself. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Yeah. So what? Obviously, you said you struggled with maybe a bit of anxiety. What were like some of the things the university did to help students in that regard during your time?
The university has been amazing, and I can say particularly. So I'll give you an example. Throughout this experience, I learned so much more about me. So I was actually, I found out during my experience and during my studies that not only am I dyslexic, but I have the ADHD. But what helped was actually the support given by the university. So my first module, which is one of the really hard ones, my strategy module, and my module leader, Stephanie Sandman, never forget her, she's dyslexic herself. So it was questions and stuff like that, and she referred me to being able to get an assessment, which it actually cost-wise, the university actually cover a lot of the tests. So you do like an initial test for dyslexia, and if you come up high enough, which you don't pay for, then there's an actual screening that they'll pay for the majority of, and you pay a small amount. But the process behind it was so good and just sort of kept you up to date. And the minute that I had my diagnosis, I had the disability team really had, like, they really jumped on to help me as well, and sort of like kept checking in. You're probably gonna, I've got so many stories for you as well, but I also halfway through as well this course, I think it was last year March, from a previous injury where I broke my ankle quite badly. I had got a bone infection, so I had to have quite major surgery on my left leg, on my tibia, to essentially have 6 inches of bone removed. And I must admit, again, throughout the whole process, when I was explaining it to my module leaders, and when I explained to a course leader, rather than advising me to, like, any could do, just take a break, whatever, they helped me through it. And because it was done online, I could refer back to Moodle, and there was also extra time given and stuff when it came to submitting my assignments, and really really did help support.
Right. So obviously, having your time at the university, for people who maybe are just starting, do you have like any advice? I know it might be a bit different because out of COVID, but maybe for like studying, like any guidance there, any advice?
Yeah, of course. For just starting, especially my advice to you, to anyone really just starting, regardless of what COVID or what, enjoy the experience. So make sure you take everything in. For many, this is going to be their first experience, and a lot for many, first experience away and things like that. And sometimes we have our personal lives and stuff like that, but just take it all in, and really, like, I'm not going to say like focus on everything, but really think about why you're here, and the opportunity you're going to have being here. And that doesn't mean just, right, as soon as you get in, take down all my notes and make sure I'm in every, like listening intently in every class, because actually there's so much support that will come around from so many different services. Like so many students may probably tell you that they didn't realise that there's an entire career service that sits right within the heart of the university. Take a trip to the career centre and speak to a career centre advisor, and sometimes don't be afraid of the questions you're asking. Sometimes you may think, I'm doing like if you question, I'm doing this course, but I don't really know what the route's gonna take me to get to where I want to go. Don't be silly, don't be afraid of asking that, because sometimes you can feel like, right, I'm going to uni and I'm after uni I'm gonna do this straight away, but you're putting pressure on yourself. You'll get I believe we should all believe that we'll get there, but go and seek advice on the route of getting there. And like I said, enjoy it all and take it all in, because it's a worthwhile experience.
Agree with everything you said there. I definitely could have used that before starting. So
sometimes you don't. Sometimes you don't know why you think, but you know you've got a passion and believe in yourself. You've been this good to get here. So don't get sort of like amassed by the white noise sometimes.
Right. Okay. So going on to your role at the university, how did that come about? Was it straight after you graduated?
No, so because I graduated, I started it. So my story even getting to university is strange. So I've never done the university experience. I was one of those kids that I started my A-levels and thought, actually, I'm going to go and work, which a lot of my generation did do at the time. But I kind of worked in so many different industries. I started, when I left school, I started working for a bank, and then climbed, climbed, but there's always sort of barriers. So I changed. So I worked with HSBC, then I moved there to Santander. Giving away my age a little bit, when I started at Santander, we had the last economic crisis. So my job wasn't secure. It's essentially, and I was made redundant, which sort of popped me back into different industries, from hospitality to like assistant running a pub, right up into sales and stuff. And it just kept fitting around. But yeah, I've worked in sales when it comes to sales in car sales, key account management, oil and gas. And that was the last thing I did before starting UEL. And it was, I felt I was good at my job, but there was a limit. And there wasn't much interest. And I took a brave decision to leave. I don't know why, but I did. But an opportunity came up at UEL, which was temporary. And because I have family that are alumni at UEL, and when my younger sisters first started their journey at university, they did start at UEL. So I knew where it was, and I thought, you know what, I love it. And the opportunity was essentially to source opportunities for students. And because my sisters at uni at the time, one of the things I used to do, what I used to do for them was, when it came to end of semester C, when you have to end and you have to go home and find a job, one of my jobs as the big brother was to make sure there was a job waiting for them when they came home. And it's one of the things that I remember telling Shrees in my interview. And it just, I was here as a contractor to try and help the programs get some opportunities. And it was a success. It was a success because of what I believe was the skills that I learned in the different industries. And I became an employee engagement officer. But my journey to my degree is because of essentially the passion I had for business. And believing every business that I worked in, I always used to take information that was taken in that business and used to really interest me and the mechanics of business. But essentially without that theoretical knowledge, it wasn't I could have I can have a lot of experience in different parts, but I don't have that theoretical knowledge. So the opportunity came where my line manager, I told her that actually I love the course, and UEL is the first place where I've ever worked in where you can see social mobility was an amazing part of the ethos of the university, and it felt like, to be honest, the first place where someone who looked like me, sounded like me, and probably had friendship groups like me, like that, would have a voice, if that makes sense. And so I did decide to do it, and UEL gave me that opportunity, even though I hadn't done an undergrad. But they took the experience I took over the years in private sectors, and it became a success.
Well, definitely, that's actually how I got this role.
Amazing.
Yeah, definitely good work. I don't know if it was you, but if it was, thank you very much.
No, amazing. Pulse, working, actually Pulse was one of my first partners on board. And it was quite nice because they took a chance on me and our students, and we flourished together from outside the knowledge doc. So, and it's a partnership that I'm proud of because it's grown within the partnership team, if that's where you came and stuff like that. So it has grown. So yes, well, if the introduction was part of you getting the role here, I'm happy. I'm really, really happy.
As am I, definitely. So obviously we are a sports group, so I think we've got to talk a lot more about sport and exercise.
Go ahead.
So exercise-wise, I know you go gym a lot. Do you want to talk about how you first got into going to the gym?
Yeah, of course. So years ago, I used to go to gym anyway. Well, I say this, when I was younger, because I wasn't great, like I said before, like sports, in the sense of doing a particular sport and actually being good at it. Like, so, but one thing one of my friends said, I remember saying, he came to me and said, you don't really do anything on the weekend anyway, you might as well come to the gym. And it was enjoyable. At first, when I was younger, it was about how I looked and stuff like that. But it became more on and off thing. But like I said years ago, like I broke my ankle quite badly. Because you guys will know, because obviously sports, you'll probably know the injury. But it was I fell from a window and broke my ankle, but it was a fib break, and it was also commuted and open. So it was messy. I had to have what you call that, like what they call like an Elizarov frame. So it's got loads of wires and stuff like that. It was going through to hold the bone in place. It healed, but because it's an open fracture, bacteria got into the bone. So I had a bone infection that was because the bacteria sat in my bone for about a year. Got treated and treated, whatever. But unfortunately, it got to the point where they had to just remove 6 inches of my bone, my tibia, and broke my leg in 2 places, and basically over the space of a year, 6 months, was turning screws to grow to travel the bone down to grow a new tib, the 6 inches, replace 6 inches that it moved away from. But because I was active at the gym before, one of my concerns in my head was, well, I've done this before in the sense of having a frame. And I remember when I did it before, I didn't do the recommended exercise and try and train my leg not to lose. It took longer. So I decided in my head, I know this is going to be a long process, and they believe it should take 2 years, but I said to myself that I don't want it to take that long. So throughout with this frame, I was going to the gym 6 times a week, trying to just keep building the muscle mass using assisted machines. And it also helped me mentally, because as you can imagine, you're trying to recover from an injury, and it's not just about physical recovery. it's when you're injured, it's the mental recovery as well, because you're going backwards. What I believe is I'm going backwards and I'm becoming less of a person, or less of the strong person, or less of lose my independence. And I think without exercise, I don't think I would have been able to cope as well. In the same time, my dad died, so it was a hard time. But I can honestly tell you that I believe that exercise and maintaining healthy exercise plan, as well as diet and stuff like that, mentally made me feel stronger.
Agree, definitely agree there. And I hope your ankles, maybe, I don't know, somewhat.
It's better. It's good basically. So I had my frame off in January, and in the last, I think, about 3-4 weeks, I've been able to wear a pair of trainers again. So it's come full circle.
From the description of it,
it was.
I must say, I would have given up on it. So
definitely. But again, exercise was one that caused me not to.
Okay, so before we started the podcast, we talked a bit about sport and your interest for tennis.
Yeah.
So, have you ever played it, or is it?
No, I have. I've never played tennis. So, just the reason why, again, it's one of those things that I love. I know I'm just rubbish at. But my love of sports, and it's come from looking at tennis, is really for the endurance. So sport, and the actual discipline. That's what I love about sport, because it's just like it's actually harder than I think than most other things. You have to discipline yourself in so many different ways. It's not just disciplining your diet, it's not just disciplining your training routine, but it's actually disciplining how you overcome. Just because you're great at a particular sport doesn't mean you're going to go on and make the hugest career. Not everyone's going to be the next sort of Andy Murray. Not everyone's going to be the next. I was gonna say David Seaman, but I was like, hang on, he's very old. But you know what I mean. You're not everyone, but it's there to show you discipline, and it's you can it really kind of humbles you, if that makes sense. And like I was saying before, that my love for tennis is like when you watch Wimbledon and you'll see like the men's final, the women's final, and to be fair, they can be just as long. But when you see those finals and you see like sometimes you'll have the underdog, or you'll have like the longest rallies, and it will last over days and games over days, but they can't lose that composure because it's not a quick win here. You can either give up, throw your racket and give up, or you can go out fighting, or you can win, if that makes sense. And it's just the composure, the steadiness, and unlike some other sports, it is just your ability and your mental strength at the same time.
Right. So coming close to the end now, I've got one more question. So obviously, you yourself are crazy about the gym, I'm guessing. So.
Yeah.
What would be maybe like give first tips to someone just starting or needs or looking to get back into it?
The gym, of course, I would say. Firstly, make sure you're doing it for the right purpose. So, don't do it. Don't like just anything. Don't start something on the benefit of anybody else. Make sure you're doing it for you, and ignore anyone. Obviously, safety advice, make sure you take your safety advice, and they generally do an induction anyway, but do it at your own pace. Do the things that you feel comfortable doing. We're all at different stages of life and different stages of physique and whatever, but do it for you and do it at your pace, and don't just give up, if that makes sense. You start it one day, but make sure you set yourself a plan. So when I'm in the gym, I generally tend to focus on numbers because that's how I process everything in my head. So essentially, I set myself a numerical goal of what I'm going to do. So if I'm going to do 10 sit-ups today. It means I'm going to do 10 sit-ups. If I can achieve more, then great, but do those 10. But set yourself a realistic, measurable goal. And then but don't do it all at once. Obviously, you set yourself a pace fit in real life. But make sure you make sure you follow, make sure you meet your own appointments. Because then I believe that you'll find you can work up numbers, you can work up whatever. You don't have to go all in at once, but when you add up and train yourself you'll train your endurance, you'll get better and you'll get wherever you want to be, whether it's to lose weight, whether it's to get fitter, or whether it's to just to get some clarity and feel better. I'll do that.
Right, well, thank you very much for the advice there.
No problem.
I'll probably take some of that into account as well. I haven't been in quite a while, so.
Just when you're ready.
Well, thank you very much again for taking time out of your day to do the podcast. It's been great hearing from you. And wish you the best.
Thank you. And thanks for having me. Thank you. See you later.